The royal guard was a man of honor and discipline. He had served his country and his royal family with pride for many years.
Ow.
His job was not easy. He had to protect important people and represent the traditions of a long history. People in his country respected him a lot. When he was invited to appear on a popular American TV show called The View, he felt proud, but also a little nervous. This was a big chance to share his culture and his experiences with a new audience. It was also a chance to show that the royal family and the traditions they followed were still important today. The day of the show arrived. The royal guard dressed carefully in his formal uniform. It was not just clothing. It was a symbol of his duty in his country's history. He looked at himself in the mirror and took a deep breath. He thought about the questions he might face. Would people understand his role? Would they respect his answers? He knew the hosts on The View were smart and sometimes very direct. They were famous for asking tough questions and having lively discussions. He prepared himself to stay calm and polite no matter what happened. When he arrived at the studio in New York, the atmosphere was busy and full of energy. The hosts of The View welcomed him warmly, and the audience clapped as he entered the stage. He noticed the cameras, the bright lights, and the many people watching. It was exciting, but also a little overwhelming. The royal guard reminded himself that this was his moment to explain the importance of his country's history and to talk about how the royal family worked in today's world. The first few minutes of the interview went well. The hosts asked friendly questions about his background, his duties, and what it meant to be part of the royal protection team. The royal guard spoke clearly and respectfully. He told stories about the ceremonies and traditions he took part in, and how important it was to honor the past while serving the present. The host seemed interested, and the audience was quiet, listening carefully. It felt like a good start, but soon the tone of the conversation changed. Joy Behar, one of the hosts known for her sharp opinions, started to ask more challenging questions. She wondered aloud if the royal family's traditions were outdated. She questioned whether having a monarchy was fair in a modern world where people wanted equality and freedom. Her voice was firm and direct, and the royal guard could tell she was not just asking for information. She wanted to test his views. The other hosts nodded and looked on, curious to see how he would respond. The royal guard remained calm. He explained that the royal family's role had changed over time. They were not rulers making laws anymore, but symbols of unity and history. He said the traditions were a way to connect people to their culture and remind them of their shared past. He believed that respecting these traditions did not mean ignoring progress. Instead, it was about honoring where they came from, while moving forward together. Joy was not satisfied with this answer. She pressed further, saying that many people thought royal families were a sign of inequality and privilege. She asked if the royal guard himself believed that everyone was truly equal under the monarchy. The question was direct and difficult. The royal guard paused for a moment before answering. He said that respect and fairness were important values, both for the royal family and for the people. But he also said that traditions gave people a sense of identity and belonging that was valuable. His words were measured but firm. As the conversation went on, the questions became more personal. Joy asked about the royal guard's opinions on protests and social changes happening in his country. She wanted to know if he thought the royal family was open to change, or if they resisted it. The royal guard spoke carefully. He said that change was part of life and that the royal family supported positive progress. But he also reminded everyone that change needed to be respectful of history and culture. He tried to balance his answers between respecting tradition and acknowledging modern ideas. The hosts listened closely. The audience could feel the tension growing. Some viewers might have agreed with Joy's strong questions. Others might have appreciated the royal guard's calm and respectful replies. The conversation was no longer just about stories and history. It had become a discussion about values, identity, and what it meant to live in a changing world. The royal guard noticed that Joy's questions were not just about facts. They were challenges. She was testing him, trying to see if he could defend his beliefs when faced with criticism. He stayed calm but felt the pressure. The studio was quiet except for the host's voices and the occasional sound of the audience, reacting softly. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment. Even though the royal guard was trained to stay composed, he began to feel a little uncomfortable. The questions were sharp, and the tone was turning serious. He realized that this was not going to be an easy interview. He told himself to remain polite and strong. He knew many people at home would be watching, hoping he would show dignity and respect, no matter what. The other hosts tried to help by asking lighter questions or changing the subject. They wanted to keep the conversation balanced. But Joy was focused. She kept bringing up difficult topics, wanting to get clear answers. The royal guard answered as best as he could, trying not to lose his calm or his message. At the end of the segment, the royal guard felt a mixture of relief and frustration. He had done his best to explain his role and defend his values. But he also knew that the conversation had been harder than he expected. He hoped that viewers would understand the complexity of his position and the importance of tradition in a changing world. As he left the studio for a short break, the royal guard thought about what had just happened. He knew that the next part of the interview could be even more challenging. Tension in the studio was clear, and he wondered how he would handle the rest of the questions. But he was determined to stay respectful, true to his beliefs. The royal guard's visit to the view had started with hope and pride. Now it had become a test of patience and strength. He was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that this moment was important for himself, his country, and the royal family he served. After the break, the royal guard returned to the studio. The air was a little tense, but he reminded himself to stay calm and respectful. The hosts welcomed him back warmly, but it was clear that the conversation was about to become more serious. Joy Behar, always ready with her sharp questions, leaned forward with a serious look. She was prepared to dive deeper into the issues she had touched on earlier. Joy began by asking the royal guard about his personal feelings regarding the role of the monarchy in today's world. She wanted to know if he thought the royal family still had a positive influence, or if they were just a symbol of old-fashioned ideas that did not fit with modern values. The question was direct and honest, and the royal guard took a moment before answering. He said that the monarchy represented history and tradition, which helped many people feel connected to their culture. He believed these traditions were important and could coexist with modern values if understood in the right way. Joy nodded, but quickly followed up by pointing out that many people saw royal families as symbols of inequality and privilege. She asked if the royal guard ever felt conflicted about serving a system that some considered unfair. The royal guard listened carefully. He explained that his role was to protect and serve, not to judge. He believed that respect and fairness were important for everyone, but he also felt that tradition and history had value in shaping a nation's identity. He added that progress and respect for tradition did not have to be enemies. They could work together. The other hosts joined the conversation, asking questions about how the royal guard saw social changes in his country. They wondered if he thought the royal family was open to these changes or resistant to them. The royal guard answered thoughtfully. He said that change was natural and necessary. He said that the royal family supported positive changes that helped people live better lives. But he also said that change should be respectful and careful, so it did not erase the past or the culture that many people loved. Joy then shifted to a more personal topic. She asked the royal guard about protests and social movements that had taken place in his country. She wondered if he thought these movements were important or if they disturbed the peace. The royal guard spoke with Carrie said that people had the right to express their opinions and seek justice. He said that peaceful protests could help bring attention to important issues. But he also said that violence or disrespect towards traditions could harm unity and make it harder for people to understand each other. Joy smiled slightly but continued to press. She asked if the royal guard had ever faced criticism or misunderstanding. Because of his role, the royal guard nodded. He said that sometimes people saw the monarchy as something distant or old-fashioned. He said that it was hard to explain the real meaning of his work to everyone, but he believed that respect and openness were the best way to build bridges between different points of view. The conversation between Joy and the royal guard grew more intense as they explored these topics. Joy challenged him with questions about fairness, equality, and change. The royal guard answered with patience and respect, but it was clear that the pressure was growing. The studio felt quiet, except for their voices and the occasional reaction from the hosts and audience. At one point, Joy asked a very direct question. Did the royal guard believe that everyone in his country was treated equally, no matter their background or social class? The royal guard paused before answering. He said that equality was an ideal that many people worked toward. He acknowledged that there were challenges and problems, but he believed that progress was possible through understanding and respect. He said that traditions could help bring people together if they were seen as a source of pride rather than division. The hosts nodded thoughtfully. The audience watched quietly, sensing that this was more than just a simple talk show interview. The discussion was touching on deep issues about culture, identity, and change. The royal guard showed respect for the questions, but also clearly stood by his beliefs and the values he represented. Joy then asked about how the royal guard saw the future. She wanted to know if he thought the monarchy would change or disappear. In the years to come, the royal guard smiled gently and said that the future was always uncertain, said that traditions could adapt and change while still keeping their core meaning. He hoped that the monarchy would continue to be a symbol of unity and history for many years. But he also said that the people's feelings and opinions were important, and that change should come naturally with time and respect. The conversation was long and sometimes challenging. The royal guard felt the weight of representing his country and its traditions in a place so far from home. He wanted to be clear and honest, but also polite and respectful. He understood that not everyone would agree with him, but he hoped that sharing his thoughts would help others see a different side of the monarchy. As the segment came to a close, the royal guard took a moment to thank the hosts and the audience for listening. He said he appreciated the chance to speak and hoped that people would think more about how history and change could work together. The host thanked him for his openness and courage in facing such tough questions. Backstage, the royal guard took a deep breath. He felt relief, but also knew the next part of the show might be even more intense. The conversation had opened important topics, but also created some tension. He reminded himself to stay calm and respectful no matter what happened. Meanwhile, viewers at home were already talking about the interview on social media. Some praised the royal guard for his calm and respectful answers. Others supported Joy behar for asking hard questions that many people wanted answered. The discussion was lively and showed that the topic was important to many people. The royal guard's appearance on The View was no longer just a simple talk show interview. It had become a conversation about respect, tradition, and the challenges of modern life. The tension between old and new, privilege and equality, was clear to everyone watching. Despite the challenges, the royal guard remained focused on his message. He wanted to show that tradition could have value even in a changing world. He believed that respect and understanding were the keys to bridging differences. But he also knew that these ideas were not easy to explain or accept by everyone. As the show moved on, the royal guard prepared himself for the final part of the interview. He knew that the conversation could become even more difficult, but he was determined to face it with dignity. The world was watching, and he wanted to represent his country and his values with honor. The conversation on The View grew even more intense as the interview moved forward. The royal guard had already shared his thoughts on tradition, culture, and change. But now, Joy Behar seemed ready to push the discussion into new and more challenging areas. Her questions became sharper. The tone of the exchange changed noticeably. Joy leaned forward and said something that surprised many viewers. She made a comment that seemed to question not only the role of the monarchy, but also the sincerity of those who served it. She asked the royal guard if he believed that the royal family truly cared about the people, or if they were more focused on their own privileges and power. The question was pointed and direct, and it cut deep. The royal guard looked calm on the outside, but inside he felt a mix of emotions. He had come to The View ready to answer questions with respect and patience, but this felt like an attack on his values and the people he served. Still, he answered with a steady voice. He said that the royal family cared deeply for their people, in their country. He explained that their role was to serve as symbols of unity, tradition, and stability. He said that the privileges they had were connected to responsibilities, and they took those responsibilities very seriously. Joy did not seem satisfied. She pressed further, asking if the royal guard thought that the royal family's traditions sometimes kept people from making real progress. She said that many people saw the monarchy as an obstacle to equality and freedom. The royal guard listened carefully before responding. He said that traditions could be misunderstood, but they were important for helping people remember their history and culture. He said that change was needed, but it should be done thoughtfully so it did not destroy what people valued. As the conversation went on, the energy in the studio shifted. The royal guard spoke passionately about the importance of history and respect, but Joy challenged him at every turn. She spoke about the struggles many people faced in his country and asked if the monarchy was doing enough to help. The royal guard acknowledged that there were challenges, but he said that the royal family supported efforts to improve society. He said they worked with leaders and communities to promote positive change. Joy's questions became more personal. She asked if the royal guard himself ever doubted his role or wished things were different. The royal guard took a deep breath before answering, said that every person has moments of doubt, but his commitment to service and tradition was strong. He said that serving the royal family was an honor and a duty he took seriously. His words were firm, but showed a human side. The hosts and audience watched closely as the debate unfolded. It was clear that this was no ordinary interview. The royal guard and Joy were not just exchanging words. They were representing two very different views of the world. The royal guard spoke of respect, honor, and tradition. Joy spoke of progress, equality, and change. Their conversation was a clash of ideas that reflected a larger conversation happening around the world. At one point, Guard thought the royal family should do more to listen to ordinary people and their concerns. The royal guard agreed. He said that listening and understanding were important for everyone, especially those in leadership or symbolic roles. Said that the royal family was open to new ideas and cared about the well-being of their people. He said that change should come from dialogue and respect, but Joy was not done. She made a statement that shocked some viewers. She said that sometimes royal traditions could feel like barriers that kept people from reaching their full potential. The royal guard responded by saying that traditions were like a bridge connecting the past and the present. He said that they helped people understand who they were and where they came from. Without tradition, he said, people might lose their sense of identity. The tension in the studio was high. The hosts tried to keep the conversation balanced, but the energy between Joy and the royal guard was electric. Both stood firm in their beliefs. The audience watched in silence, sensing that this was more than a disagreement. It was a deep cultural and personal confrontation. Suddenly, Joy made a comment that was sharper than before. She questioned whether the royal guard truly understood the struggles of people who did not have the privileges he represented. She asked if he thought the royal family had ever truly walked in the shoes of ordinary citizens. The royal guard's eyes narrowed slightly. He paused, then answered carefully. He said that while he came from a life of service and tradition, he was aware of the challenges many people faced. He said he believed empathy and respect were key to bridging gaps. He added that the royal family was committed to helping improve the lives of all people, regardless of their background. The exchange became more heated. Voices rose slightly as both spoke with passion. The royal guard's patience was tested, but he remained polite. Joy's tone was firm but fair, reflecting her belief that tough questions were necessary. The studio felt charged with energy, and the viewers could feel the weight of the conversation. Then came the moment many viewers had been waiting for. Joy asked the royal guard about a recent protest in his country that had gained international attention. She asked if he thought the royal family's response had been adequate, or if it had shown that they were out of touch with the people. The royal guard answered thoughtfully, said that protests were a sign that people cared deeply about their future. He said that the royal family respected the right to peaceful protests but hoped for dialogue and understanding. He said that change required listening to all sides and working together. Joy nodded but pressed one last time. She asked if the royal guard thought the monarchy could survive in a world where people demanded more equality and less privilege. The royal guard smiled gently. He said that the future was uncertain but hopeful. He believed that traditions could evolve and that respect and unity were still important values. He said that he hoped the monarchy could continue to be a symbol of history and connection, but that it must listen and adapt to the needs of the people. As the segment ended, the hosts thanked the royal guard for his honesty and courage. The audience applauded, some cheering quietly. The royal guard felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The conversation had been difficult, but he had done his best to share his views with respect and dignity. Backstage, the royal guard took a moment to collect his thoughts. He knew the final part of the interview might be even more challenging. The questions had grown sharper, and the atmosphere was tense, but he was determined to finish with honor. Little did he know, the next part of the interview would bring an unexpected turn that would change everything. The calm he had maintained so far would be tested like never before. The royal guard prepared himself for whatever lay ahead, knowing that the world was watching and that this moment could define his legacy. The tension in the studio was now thick. The royal guard had answered many difficult questions with patience and respect, but it was clear the conversation was about to reach a critical point. Joy Behar's eyes shone with intensity as she prepared to ask what would become the most challenging question of the entire interview. The other hosts watched quietly, sensing that this moment could change everything. Joy's voice was steady but firm. She said something that shocked everyone present. She questioned the very foundation of the royal guard's beliefs. She asked if he truly believed that the royal family had the people's best interests at heart, or if their traditions and privileges were simply ways to keep power and status for themselves. The question was sharp and personal. It cut deeper than any before. The royal guard felt a sudden rush of emotion. Inside, he was hurt. His loyalty to the royal family and his sense of duty were strong. To have those questioned in such a public way was difficult to bear. For a moment, he hesitated. The studio was silent, except for the sound of his slow breathing. The cameras were focused entirely on him. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his rising feelings. Then, in a voice that was steady but full of quiet strength, he responded. He said that the royal family cared deeply about their people and their country. He spoke about their long history of service and sacrifice. He reminded everyone that with privilege came responsibility, and that the royal family took that responsibility very seriously. He said their traditions were not just about power, but about connection, unity, and respect. Joy listened, but did not soften. She said she understood his words, but pointed out that many people saw things differently. She said that some believed the royal family's traditions were outdated, and that they made it harder for people to move forward. She asked if the royal guard ever felt that his role was to defend something that was holding people back. The royal guard's eyes narrowed slightly, and his jaw tightened. He answered firmly. He said that traditions were not barriers, but bridges. They connected the past with the present and gave people a sense of identity and belonging. He said that progress was important, but it should not come at the cost of losing respect for history and culture. He believed that change could happen with respect and understanding, not by tearing down what others held dear. Joy pressed on. She challenged the royal guard to admit if he had ever felt frustrated or doubtful about his role. She asked if he thought the monarchy was open enough to change or if it resisted it. The royal guard paused and looked directly at Joy. He said that everyone has moments of doubt, but his commitment was strong. He said the royal family had changed over time and would continue to do so. He believed in progress but wanted it to happen thoughtfully. The conversation grew more heated. Joy asked about protests and movements calling for equality and justice. She wanted to know if the royal guard thought the royal family was listening to these voices or ignoring them. The royal guard said that peaceful protest was a right and an important way for people to express themselves. He said the royal family was aware of the people's concerns and supported positive change. He urged for dialogue and understanding to build a better future. Suddenly, Joy made a comment that shocked everyone in the studio. She questioned whether the royal guard really understood the struggles of ordinary people. She said it seemed like he came from a world very different from theirs. The royal guard's calm began to show cracks. His voice was firmer now as he answered. He said that while he had a role connected to tradition and privilege, he was aware of the hardships many people faced. He said empathy and respect were important, and that everyone deserved dignity. The atmosphere became electric. The royal guard was clearly struggling to hold his composure. Joy's questions were direct and personal, and the weight of the interview was pressing on him. The other hosts exchanged looks, sensing the rising tension. The audience was silent, but attentive, sensing that something important was about to happen. Joy then asked about a recent event, a protest that had caused a stir both in his country and around the world. She wanted to know if the royal family's response had been right, or if it showed that they were out of touch. The royal guard answered thoughtfully. He said that protests showed that people cared deeply, said the royal family respected peaceful protests, but hoped for calm and dialogue. He said that real progress needed cooperation and respect. Then, the moment came that no one in the studio expected. Joy made a sharp comment that many found provocative. She suggested that sometimes the royal family's traditions were more about keeping power than helping people. The royal guard's face hardened, took a deep breath, then stood up quickly. The sudden movement shocked everyone. Without saying a word, the royal guard turned and walked toward the edge of the stage. The hosts tried to speak to him, but he ignored them. The audience gasped in surprise and confusion. Cameras followed him as he made his way toward the exit. Some viewers at home were stunned. The moment was tense and dramatic. Joy looked surprised, but did not chase after him. The other hosts tried to call him back, but the royal guard was determined. He walked off the set, leaving behind a silent room. The live broadcast cut to a commercial, and the studio staff scrambled to manage the situation. Backstage, the royal guard took a moment to gather himself. He was shaken, but knew he had to leave. The words had felt like a personal attack. He felt disrespected and hurt. His years of service, his beliefs, and his loyalty had been questioned so publicly that he could not stay silent any longer. The incident quickly spread online. Clips of the royal guard's sudden exit went viral, sparking heated debates on social media. People argued about who was right and who was wrong. Some praised the royal guard for standing up for his beliefs. Others supported Joy Behar for pushing tough questions. News outlets picked up the story, turning it into a larger discussion about culture, respect, and modern values. The studio was quiet after the event. The hosts expressed their surprise and disappointment. They hoped the royal guard would return to finish the interview, but it was clear that the moment had changed everything. The dramatic exit became the defining moment of the show. In the days that followed, statements were released. The royal guard explained his decision to leave, saying he felt disrespected and that the conversation had crossed a line. He spoke about the importance of mutual respect and understanding. The hosts of The View also made statements, saying they stood by their questions but regretted the way things ended. The story became more than just an interview. It became a symbol of the struggle between tradition and change, respect and challenge. The royal guard storming off the set was seen as both a brave stand and a missed opportunity for dialogue. For the royal guard, the experience was deeply personal. He returned to his duties with a new sense of purpose, but also a heavy heart. He understood that his role was difficult and that not everyone would agree with his views, but he remained committed to his beliefs, to serving his country with honor. The fiery showdown with Joy Behar and the dramatic exit from The View would be remembered as a moment when two worlds clashed on live television. About respect, culture, and the power of words. And it left both the royal guard and the audience reflecting on what it truly means to listen, to understand, and to respect each other in a changing world. After the royal guard left the set in a sudden and dramatic way, the world outside the studio began to talk about the event nonstop. The news spread quickly on television, in newspapers, and all over social media. People everywhere were watching. The clips of the moment when he stood up and walked off during the live broadcast, some people felt shocked, Others felt upset, and many were curious about what had really happened behind the scenes in the days that followed. The royal guard decided to speak out about his experience. He gave an interview to a respected newspaper, where he explained why he had left the show. He said that he felt his beliefs and values were being unfairly attacked. He talked about the importance of respect and understanding, and how he hoped for conversations that could bring people closer, not push them apart. He said he was proud to serve his country and the royal family, but he also wanted people to recognize that tradition and culture were deeply meaningful to many. At the same time, Joy Behar and the other hosts of The View also shared their thoughts. They said they respected the royal guard's decision to leave, but stood by their questions. Explained that their goal was to ask honest and difficult questions that many people wanted answered. They hoped the conversation could help viewers think about the balance between tradition and progress. They also expressed a wish that the royal guard had stayed to continue the dialogue. The public response was mixed. Some people praised the royal guard for standing up for his values and refusing to accept criticism that felt disrespectful. They admired his courage and loyalty. Others praised Joy Behar for being brave enough to ask tough questions and challenge the ideas that many people accept without question. They said that true progress comes from honest conversations. Even when they are uncomfortable, many experts and commentators began to weigh in. Some said the incident showed how difficult it is to talk about culture, tradition, and change in a respectful way. Others said it revealed the deep divides that still exist in society about these issues. Some thought that both the royal guard and the hosts could have handled the situation better. They hoped that future conversations would be more open, patient, and understanding. The royal guard himself reflected deeply on what had happened. He realized that his sudden exit had shocked many people and changed the tone of the conversation. While he had felt disrespected at the time, he also hoped that his decision would encourage others to think more carefully about how they speak about people's beliefs and traditions. He wanted the world to understand that respect was not just about agreeing with someone, but about listening and trying to understand their point of view. Back in his country, the royal guard returned to his duties with a mix of pride and seriousness. His experience on The View had made him more aware of the challenges of representing a long-standing tradition in a rapidly changing world. He met with his colleagues and superiors to discuss how they could better communicate with people both at home and abroad. He believed that bridging gaps between tradition and modern values was possible, but would take time and patience. Meanwhile, the producers of The View planned a follow-up segment. They invited experts on culture, history, and social change to discuss the incident and its wider meaning. The conversation included voices from different backgrounds and perspectives. The goal was to explore how people could have difficult discussions with respect and openness. The segment attracted a large audience eager to hear more thoughtful insights. Many viewers continued to debate the event online. Some shared stories about their own experiences with tradition and change. Others talked about how important it was to ask questions, but also to listen carefully. The conversation sparked by the royal guard's appearance became a moment for many to reflect on their own beliefs and attitudes in the months that followed. The royal guard received letters and messages from people around the world. Some thanked him for standing firm and sharing his story. Others challenged him with their own questions and ideas. He welcomed these messages, seeing them as an opportunity for continued dialogue. He believed that real understanding came from talking and listening, not from silence or anger. The incident also inspired people in his country to think more about the role of the monarchy and tradition in modern life. Some started new discussions in their communities about how to honor the past while embracing change. Schools and universities held talks about culture and history, inviting voices from different generations. The royal guard's story became part of a larger movement toward finding balance between respect for tradition and the need for progress. Looking back, the royal guard knew that the interview on The View was a turning point in his life. It had tested his patience, his beliefs, and his ability to handle criticism. But it also showed him the power of conversation and the importance of standing up for what you believe in. Even when it is hard, he realized that respect was a two-way street. It required both courage to speak honestly and kindness to listen. Openly, he hoped that his experience would help others learn to have better conversations about difficult topics. He dreamed of a future where people could share their stories and beliefs without fear of judgment or anger. The story of the Royal Guard's fiery showdown with Joy Behar and his dramatic exit from the view became a symbol of the challenges and possibilities in a changing world. It reminded everyone that behind every tradition and every belief, there are real people with real feelings. It showed that even in moments of conflict, there is hope for understanding and respect. In the end, the Royal Guard continued his service with honor, but with new wisdom. He knew that the world was full of different views, and that his role was to protect and represent, but also to listen and learn. His journey on the View had been difficult, but it was also a chance to grow and to help others grow too. And so, the Royal Guard moved forward, ready to face the future with strength, humility, and an open heart. His story was not just about a moment on television. It was about the ongoing journey of respect, tradition, and change in a world that was always evolving.